now for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 384 of This Old Marketing for Friday, July 14th, 2023. And with me, as always, as he always is, my pal, my colleague, and a guy who's really, I know, looking forward to seeing the double feature of Oppenheimer and Barbie, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
How did you know that I absolutely am? That's ridiculous.
Do you know that they are actually doing like a promo of, I think they're calling it Barbenheimer.
It's so good.
It's so good. I mean, the Barbie marketing is crazy.
It's diametrically opposed, right? And
yeah,
you feel it.
yeah. You don't really get much more opposite movies than that, but yeah.
So on that note, so first of all, I want to know, are you going to see both movies?
I'm not sure I'll make it out to see. I'm kind of really off theaters, and for no particular reason. It's not like
It's not like a COVID remainder thing.
Nah, it's just sort of more of a hassle kind of thing. But the Barbie movie, maybe. I'm not sure either of those movies gets me into a theater. But definitely, we'll watch both. I'm very interested to see both. Yeah. So it maybe is the answer.
Well, I know this is terrible. I'm almost more apt to see Barbie because I know how Oppenheimer ends. I mean, I know what happens.
It's an explosive ending.
Based on some kind of truth. Maybe not the truth, but some kind of truth. Now, did you see this thing that Tom Cruise is all upset because of Oppenheimer?
I did not see this. What fill me in.
So apparently Mission Impossible is coming out, I believe, this week.
And that's a movie that might actually get me into a theater.
He's so good. And he's are they messing with his face CGI because he looks even younger? I don't know how he does it.
Here's the thing I want to understand about his face. If you see him on the red carpet and you see him in interviews and you can tell, I mean, sad to say,
you can tell that
he's had some work done.
Old, right?
He's definitely had some work done. You can see it. You can see it in
not Madonna work, but
not Madonna level work, but he's definitely had some work done. And I mean, he looks great, but you can definitely see he's had some. I always think of the movies but he's definitely had the pulling back of the face a bit. But in the movies, I don't know whether they do it with just makeup or whether they do it in a certain angle or whatever. You're right. He looks as young as ever.
There's a lot of shadow work and partial CGI. And I know you haven't seen Indiana Jones yet, but they do a lot of CGI of him really young in the beginning, and then after that beginning part, they go to Indiana Jones being, I don't know, 75 years old, whatever Harrison Ford is today, looking as bad as you can possibly look, and it's awesome to see that. It's like, wow, it's chilling. Regardless, back to the point.
Yes.
So Tom Cruise,
he's upset.
Is upset because I don't know if you knew this, but when he launched Maverick did, I believe, $110 million on IMAX theaters alone.
Wow.
Just with IMAX. So,
that's
Tom
crazy.
Cruise knows that IMAX is very important for the success of the financial success of Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Has found out that he only gets 9 days on IMAX theaters because Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer comes out and has it reserved for 3 weeks. So Tom gets the boot and Christopher Nolan is coming in strong. Now, I didn't know why Nolan gets all this. And then Laura, who works at the Tilt, said that Nolan uses like all IMAX equipment, has a really good relationship with IMAX. So of course he gets first dibs because they have some kind of partnership going on.
Yeah.
But I don't think Scientology is going to stand for this happening.
Oh no,
just the
you
9
went there.
Days. What?
You went there.
I have nothing against it. I'm just saying
Sure.
they're very powerful.
Yes.
Especially in movies. And I think something has to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Tom Cruise.
I'm not sure the Scientology lobby is going to have a lot to say about this, but go on. Please continue.
Well, and the other thing is we've got this impending. You've got the writer's strike, and we've got this impending actors strike now. Why doesn't Tom Cruise do something about it? Why doesn't Scientology do something about it? They could step in 2 seconds and fix this thing.
That is, you know.
You know. You know.
Yeah, well.
You know. And I'm not going to say how you know, but you know. You live there.
It's close. Yeah, it's the proximity is definitely
you're right down the street. Here.
It is true.
You're like neighbors.
Yeah.
With the big church.
Yeah. Well, I actually was. When my wife and I when we lived in Hollywood, we were quite literally across the street from the big castle, which is an old hotel that has now been converted into what they call the Scientology Castle, or I forget there's a name for it, but it's basically the celebrity center. It's where everybody, all the celebrities go.
Travolta and
they have dinners there, and they have big parties, and then you can stay there. It's a little bit like a highfalutin hotel for top level Scientologists.
Can you Airbnb it?
You cannot. No, you cannot. No, and in fact, if you walk, I mean, they were known for when you walk up and down the streets, they've got security people, and by the way, this is more information than you want to know about this, but so on the periphery of the hotel, so on one side is the freeway, so there's one side of the hotel that is just basically the 101 freeway.
Okay,
but on either side of the hotel are other apartment buildings. And a lot of the workers for the hotel, they've basically bought those apartment buildings, and they live in those apartment buildings. And so they kind of view those side streets like their own little private driveways, which they aren't, of course, but they view them that way. And if you walk up and down, like if you take a walk or you're walking your dog or whatever, you're likely to get harassed. Like, what are you doing here or whatever.
Really?
And, oh yeah, they were annoying.
So you're saying I can't Airbnb it?
You cannot. You definitely. I shouldn't be so cavalier about that.
I just asked a simple question, and you went on with the whole freeway thing, which is fine. It's really good. I'm sure our listeners really wanted to know that. What most people want to know is, why don't they just fix the writer's strike and the like? I don't understand. I don't.
Well, the theory, the current prevailing theory, and by the way, as we record this, the actors will make their decision today on whether they're going to strike or not. It should be around noon.
Sounds like that's
noon my time, so around 3 p.m. I think it's going to happen. Yeah, I think they're going to strike, especially with the way Fran Drescher, which is just funny to me that she's the head of the Actors Union, this
we're going to strike.
Exactly. Which she doesn't speak like that at all, but
she doesn't.
No, not. I'm her normal.
Does she do her laugh?
Voices.
I can't do the laugh.
But. Yeah, she doesn't do that. She certainly doesn't do it anymore. But given her statement yesterday, it seems pretty clear that they're ready to strike. So the prevailing theory on the writer's strike is it's going to go into the fall, because the studios are basically waiting them out. They're waiting them out to leverage to get a better deal. But
this is fall? I mean, isn't there a lot in production right now, or not? Because there's
there would be.
So nothing's going on.
There would be a lot in pre-production right now.
So if the writers are striking, then it doesn't matter. The actors might as well strike too, because nothing's going on.
That's correct. And the key here is that it's a little different now that there's so many streaming services. It's kind of a year-round thing now, instead of just sort of being so focused in on the late summer and early fall for show production. But it still exists. I mean, the upfronts still exist, and sort of the new fall series on broadcast cable still exist, and so basically if it's like, if you can get, they've already shot this year, right? They're basically, the studios are this year is gone, right? The 2023 starting in the fall, that's gone. So now there's no, with that, as long as they have inventory, really they're looking at 2024. So it's like they're in no hurry, put it that way.
I'm under the assumption that the second half financial results for all the networks, and Netflix included, are going to be amazing because the cost structure is way down. Right?
It could be.
Theoretically.
Yeah,
Netflix is
be.
not spending as many billions of dollars as they normally do because a lot of those people
that
are striking
probably,
right
now. I mean, if you follow that theory, it probably wouldn't hit, that wave wouldn't hit until next, like second quarter of next year.
Okay.
When all those, basically, because what you've got now is a lot of shows that will be delayed until they settle it, or canceled, honestly, because they just figure it's not worth doing now. So yes, I think it's a sound theory, but I don't think it would. I mean, it would be a really trailing number because that money is already spent, right? For stuff that's already in production, those contracts and that money is already spent. In fact, there's lots of stories about how series are still okay for the large part because everything was kind of because they were expecting this, right? So a lot of the shows and production companies got a lot of stuff in the can, so they've got some backlog.
So but if you were, not this is a financial show, but if you're thinking about that, and
I love how you always preface it that way.
You have to, because somebody's gonna. In my personal newsletter, I wrote about Bitcoin, and I always have to say, this is not any financial advice, please. I'm not that type of person. But if you were if you were thinking about it, you'd say, well, now might be a good time to think that there might be 20 or 25% upside to Netflix right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, I think that's true. Generally speaking, I think that's true. Generally speaking, I mean, they're doing much better. The whole password thing is working, right? So
that did not backfire at all because the whole and it showed you how many people were stealing passwords, not stealing, co-opting, borrowing, and not giving back. I don't know what that's called.
Well, yeah, and then how many of them would actually convert? I mean, because what they did with that, I think, was so genius was they launched the ad-supported product and then did the password thing, right? Because now there is a place for you to go that you don't have to, you can get an account and not have to, get a separate account and not have to, necessarily pay the big subscription fee.
People that listen to this, they're really in for an amazing episode because look at all the stuff we've already covered. We could stop the episode right now and it fulfilled our mission.
This is here. I'll tell you this:
absolutely useless information in the media realm of some kind.
There's been more discussed in this episode in the very beginning than most. That's for sure.
That's true. You could literally stop right now and say, "Hey, I've had a
please don't.
Day."
Please don't stop right now. Please don't.
See the numbers. I don't know why the numbers dropped in 13 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe because I told people to leave. That could be. Anyways,
they do listen to you.
What do we got?
We got a wonderful show. We have a wonderful show. We are going to talk about, because I don't know, it's for the 384th time. We're going to talk about Disney and we're going to talk about Apple. Because look, Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, who's back. Right. It's sort of like every time I see the Bob Iger is back, it's like I always think of Star Wars, somehow Palpatine returned. It's like, somehow Iger returned. He got an extension. He got a 3-year extension. And I think you definitely have an opinion on this. And I think
there's something to be said.
Yeah,
here.
there's about the number. Yeah, about the number. And basically we'll talk a little bit about what in that extension and where there may be some still linkages to Apple or someone else. Then we'll talk, of course, about Threads because it has just been remarkable. I've been doing a little more research into what's going on there and some of where it sits in history and all of that. So we'll talk a little bit more about Threads, but we'll also talk about the fact that, branded content tools are coming as well as advertisers are already getting pitched, even though the company has said that it won't introduce advertising until at least early next year. We'll see about that.
We'll see about this.
And then we'll of course mention where Twitter is in this because engagement is down apparently, traffic is down, but Linda Yaccarino, she says she's literally saying everything is fine as the world is burning around her. And then we'll talk about some publishing insights from the Morning Brew, fantastically successful newsletter, of course, series of newsletters, really more than anything else, media company, and we'll talk about some of the best practices there that they sort of bring out and where Joe and I think about that. And then we'll get into rant. Well, we have a question from the audience this episode, which is totally fun. And we'll get to Joe's rant. It's more of a, I don't know if it's a rant. It's more commentary. We're going to talk about Aretha Franklin's couch. And so, that should tease you to get to the end. Aretha Franklin's couch. And then I am going to rave just honestly about the new Star Trek show. For longtime listeners of the show, you'll know I am a super Trekkie fan. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about the Strange New Worlds new season and why I think it's so genius from a content creations perspective. So just a great show. I think a fun show.
As you would say, a chock-a-block.
Chock-a-block. A cornucopia.
Which is, you're the only one I know that's ever said chock-a-block.
Is that true?
Where does that come from? Is that something
know.
in Texas? Do people say that in Texas?
No, they definitely don't say it in Texas.
Moved to California.
They don't say it in Texas. Certainly not anymore. But I'm not sure where. Maybe I'll try and look it up.
That doesn't mean anything. Okay. Anyways.
Yeah.
All right, here
well, Texas is different now.
Yeah. What are we talking about? Are we talking about my favorite? Absolutely.
We are talking about subject? Your favorite. Yeah, your favorite bullshit, which is from the street. And that's what we'll link to in the show notes anyway. Although there are a number.
Can I say something about the street first of all?
Oh yeah, please.
I thought that Forbes was the worst web experience, but they rival it, battle, folks. The street. I was on this site for just 5 seconds. Things keep popping and flying around the stream here. I can't even focus. I got something, a banner on the top. I got a banner going on in the middle. You got
videos coming in.
I got a video popping up on the side about buying some new inkjet printer or something. I've got look at how quickly.
Yeah.
I've got an ad right below the headline, and then I've got 2 paragraphs, and I got another ad.
Yeah.
And then I got more sponsored content in the middle here. And then I've got a big white gap here, which is probably an ad that didn't load.
That's right. Well, it's probably an ad that didn't get purchased. So, yeah.
What? Here's another ad.
Yeah. And there's more.
I don't want to show that. Sorry, listening folks. There's things on the street that just you should not be. Anyways, go ahead. Please, after you.
Well, this is as you mentioned, your favorite topic, and the headline here that does come from the street is: Analyst expects Disney to be bought by this tech giant. That's not clickbaity at all.
No, what's this tech giant?
Anyway, the article opens up by saying Needham analyst Laura Martin has been beating this drum for weeks. Little does Laura know that Joe's been beating this drum for 10 years. Anyway, she floats a timeline for a potential sale. The Walt Disney Company has seen better times, says the article, as the iconic entertainment company prepares to celebrate its centennial in October. The usually busy summer season for its theme parks have hit a snag with shorter wait times and slowing traffic. At the box office, the recent flop of Disney Pixar's Elemental is also weighing on the company, as the animated film with a $200 million budget took in less than $30 million on its opening weekend. Add to that the 14 million subscribers Disney Plus lost earlier this year, and the 3 main pillars of the House of Mouse theme parks, film, and television are all experiencing shaky times. And in these shaky times, they say the best option for the historic company is to sell itself. And in a note this week, the firm says the sale will happen within the next 3 years. Remember that number, folks, 3 years. Because additionally, on CNBC, Bob Iger was on, talking about the fact that he got his extension. The board has approved his extension for, wait for it, 3 years. And basically, the article here on the street goes on to talk about how Apple is the perfect acquisitor for it, basically talking about how it has enough money, the fact that it's now a $3 trillion company. And So
the Needham analyst, Laura Martin, is her name?
Yeah.
She must be a listener of This Old Marketing.
She might be.
And she's probably started listening in 2013.
She might be. She's beating that drum.
So the interesting thing here is, I hate being right about something like
this. Well, you haven't. You're not right yet. Let's just be very clear. You're not right yet.
You said yet.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is a win. That's a W. That's a W right there.
All right.
So they've given the board, whatever, or Iger have agreed that Iger's going to stay on until 2026. So basically 3 more years from now. Coincidentally, it feels like we're going to have a sale in the next 3 years. Now, when you say if they're going to sell, there's only a couple companies that could possibly purchase Disney, just because it's such a large company. You could think maybe Microsoft, but I don't think, because of all the antitrust stuff they just got through with the Activision Blizzard thing, they're not going to go through something like that again. Just too much. I don't think it fits Amazon's portfolio at all. But coincidentally, there's one company that absolutely would be the perfect fit. I think you know who that company is.
I think I do. I think I know who you think it is.
It's finally happening, and I thought it was going to happen about 8 years ago. It's
finally happening.
And it all seems to, we're seeing more and more of these things. It's almost like out of nowhere, we're starting to see more of these cues. And these Bob Iger breadcrumbs that he's spreading out, just trying to get in front of the team at Apple and make this thing happen. Apple's new product, the Supervision, or whatever it's called. What is it called? What's the helmet? What's the Stormtrooper helmet for Apple?
I don't even remember.
iVision, whatever it is.
Yeah,
it needs content. Disney can supply that content.
So
you can't just have Ted Lasso reruns be the only content on this thing. It has to be something from Disney.
That's true.
So, okay, you can. It is funny. Isn't the 3 years funny, though, that he's giving a little bit more time? He's cutting back. There's the thing.
Well,
I think divest the ABC. They're going to divest the networks and ABC. They're already thinking about what they have to do to create more shareholder value.
That's right. So I don't know if it was the third year or the fourth year or the fifth year that we talked about this. We've been talking about it a long time.
Yeah.
But one of the conversations we had about this, I acquiesced and said, and I still do believe this, that it could happen, but it wouldn't happen as the company is formulated today. I think Apple has zero interest in being in the cable TV business. I think it has zero interest in being in. I would think it would have zero interest in being sort of in the cruise business or in the sort of hotel business and all of that. So
I thought that Apple was in the experience business.
They are, but I just don't think I don't think there's any. So I think parts of Disney could make tremendous sense, right? The content side of things, 100%, right? So Marvel Studio, like to your point, they need content, right? So Marvel Studios, Star Wars, all of the sort of major parts of the content part of the studio makes sense. The theme parks, I'm a little bit torn on. I don't see the magic there that having be part of Apple, other than maybe bringing in the viewer into the, you put on the goggles and you can go to the theme park and it's a whole thing. And I can see it. I can definitely see it, but it's tough to see it without. And maybe that's why they need 3 years, is so that he can jettison some of these older businesses and make it a little more attractive for the sale.
What's the CEO of Apple? What's his name?
Tim Cook.
So do you think that Tim and Bob got together at some point? They were probably, I don't know, wearing jeans and cowboy hats and walking along the beach or something like that. And do you think that Bob said, "Hey, we both know this should happen, but to your point, there's some inconsistencies in the business model that we'd have to fix first. Bob, why don't you stick around for a couple of years?" Of course, Tim has that say. Why don't you stick around Disney for a couple of years and sell off some of the things, like sell off the cruise ships, which would, frankly, who knew, by the way, 2023, the biggest cruise year ever.
Yeah.
Bigger than 2019, folks. Cruises are back. More people are cruising than ever before. The Disney Cruise Line could absolutely be sold off
100%
for a lot of money. So anyways, the point is, do you think that's a possible conversation? He's going to start get the networks gone, get the cruise line going,
I buy that.
To a point where Disney could be bought.
I buy right. Some part of Disney that exists today could be purchased. Yeah. So
it's interesting that we're starting to see more of this happen.
Yeah. Well, I think we're starting to see there's a real effort now. You can see it sort of the tectonic plates shifting in media, where you can see that the way to do this is at scale, right? You have to do it at scale, because you can't. I mean, the funny thing is that we're going to talk about this in a little bit when we talk about the Morning Brew, or the Marketing Brew, or Morning Brew. Sorry,
both of them.
Yeah, which is the profitability part of it, right? And scale is really the key here. It's diversification across media, which you've talked about forever. But of course, scale really helps that diversification. And so, ATT divesting themselves of the whole Warner, and then Warner merging with Discovery, which is arguably was a bad marriage to begin with. But that's the thinking behind it anyway, is that you've got to have that level of scale in order to make a media company work these days. And so it's a fascinating time.
But I think back to what you and I talked about, I don't know, it was like 7-8 years ago, when we said that you have this merging of media and tech.
Yes, for
and that's
sure.
We called it. We said that Apple was absolutely going to launch their own thing. Amazon was absolutely going to launch their own thing. Amazon launched Prime, and Apple's got Plus, and TV Plus, whatever the case is, whatever it's called these days.
Yeah.
They've all got their own things going on, and you're going to continue to see that. So if you say the biggest players in media are also the biggest tech companies, so you have Apple and Microsoft and Netflix and Meta, which we'll talk about in a little bit. It's interesting to see how they're moving the puzzle pieces around so that they can last the next 10 to 15 years and be that dominant player in both new technology services and the media play. It's all a part of the package.
Well, it's funny because, this might be a nice cue to our next story here, because I actually talked about this with regard to Meta and Threads, right? Because it's really the audiences, right? It's the audience as an asset, and having a lead-in audience, and basically having a diversified audience across a number of properties, which gives you that scale and the ability to launch new products successfully, because you've got that built-in cross-promotional idea, right? So what I tweeted this out and put it on Threads, and also put it on LinkedIn, which is, I said, from a Threads point of view, it's like, how do you garner 100 million subscribers in less than 2 weeks? Well, you start with 2.3 billion subscribers the week before. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a great point. That's the easiest way to do it. If you already have an audience, then just add in another component to it.
Yeah. Done. All right. Should we then move to that story?
We should talk about this one here. I'll put this one up. Boom.
Yeah. All right. So yes, Threads has had a remarkable growth over the last 2 weeks, and we'll see.
What are they at right now? What's the number?
108 million is what the last I saw. 108 million was yesterday.
It's got to be more. Wasn't I right and wrong last week when I said that they would have more U.S. users than Twitter?
Well, you said before the end of the summer, and I think everybody tweeted at you and said,
Joe, you were wrong. Is by the end of the day.
Exactly. It's crazy how fast this thing is.
I thought that was like a pretty risky. I'm like, oh yeah, they'll have more, and then I was completely wrong. I undershot that one.
It's amazing. I mean, and I did some very quick back of the envelope math, which I wrote a little piece for CMI to talk about the ARPU, right? Which of course is the average revenue per user, to make the case about the value of an owned media audience. And it's like, if somebody told, if you just do a very basic Twitter level ARPU, which is around $5 a user per quarter, they built it. They basically have built a $2 billion business in less than 2 weeks. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely nutty. Now we'll see if they can maintain that. We'll see if they can keep the engagement. We'll see if they can maintain, a level. And as we're about to talk about, they have said that they're not going to monetize it with anything till early next year at the earliest. But we'll see if they can keep their hands out of their pockets for a moment, because the article that we'll start with here, at least, is that Instagram is planning on bringing its branded content tools to Threads, says a source to Axios, which is what we'll link to in the show notes, of course, giving marketers a way to get involved with the paid promotion on the app while advertising is still off limits. Companies see a clear advantage on being a first mover on Threads, but with the rules around paid promotion in flux, it's unclear the best way to get involved beyond creating organic posts. Instagram's terms of service, which include guidance around sponsored content, applies to Threads. That means brands that work with influencers to post sponsored content are technically required to use Instagram's branded content tools. Instagram's branded content tools allow companies to add paid partnership labels to their posts and are only made available to eligible brands. Which seems kind of ass backwards, but all right. Yeah.
What it is. It's okay.
Anyway, a source told Axios that Instagram is working quickly to make them available, which would give marketers an opportunity to begin experimenting with paid promotion while advertising is still unavailable. And then it reads through, and the rest of the article talks about, basically something to get to 800 words so that they can serve up an ad for us. But what do you think about all of this?
So true. That's so true. We need another headline, another bullet point, because I got to get my next ad.
Yeah.
I understand that a lot of, there's two things. There's a lot of advertisers that want to try this out because you want to be the first mover with this whole thing. And
of course.
And so that's fine. And as you talked about last week, you've got the ad sales team for Instagram just dying to get at this thing and sell it.
Well, and that's another, just very quickly here, if you want to bring up the other article here, just so we can talk about all this in context.
Let's do this.
Ad Age ran an article that they got sort of a sneak preview PowerPoint presentation that advertisers are already getting pitched. And basically that, what they said there in that article was that, they're promising a lot of the things that Instagram already has, the brand safety and all of the interesting things there. But basically they've been coming around talking about all new features like trending topics and some things that they're that are going to be there, but they're already getting pitched, right? The big advertisers that are on Instagram, I'm sure, are getting PowerPoints in their email, and they're getting calls, and they're getting sort of like, it's coming, don't worry, can we count on you for an upfront, and all that kind of stuff. So it's already coming.
How long do you think it's going to be till they acquiesce and say that they've got to? I mean, I know they say in the Axios article, it says they want a critical mass. They have a critical mass.
They do, but I think they need to make
until they see how many users stay on the platform.
That's the key. I think they'll make good on that promise not to do stuff until early next year, because that will give them the data and insight to say it's sticking, right?
How many people are using it?
Yeah, because it's
back.
Right. What they don't want is this to become another, Google Plus, right? I mean, where, Google Plus got a lot of uptake when it originally came up, and very quickly died, right? Just
actually better. I think a better one is probably Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Think about, because Clubhouse, like, really, we talked about it. What was their valuation? Was it $4 billion? And you were right.
Yeah,
you said, this is silly. This is not going to last. You were absolutely right with this thing. And they don't want to be another flash in the pan.
Yes. So I think they give it till the early next year, because that's easy, and they'll have the holiday season to point to, and they'll look at they'll look at all the traffic, they'll look at the engagement levels, they'll have a lot more data to make to base what a theoretical ARPU, an average revenue per user, would be. That means they can set proper ad rates for it. They can get what they need out of it. And they won't have egg on their face, because the last thing they want to do is start having people advertise on it now and then have it fade, because then that puts doubt into Instagram, right? So they, they're walking a thin line here, one that I think isn't terribly that tenuous, but I think I think cooler heads will prevail here. They don't need to monetize it right away.
That's
to your point last week, and so I think I think they're getting their ducks in a row, and I think the salespeople are probably frothing at the mouth a little bit, but I think they'll cool their jets until early next year.
Well, we talked about it, and I will continue to talk about it, is that this and the reason why I was wrong in the first place, which I didn't think that Instagram was going to launch this whole thing, was because the Twitter business model is a terrible business model. Like, you don't want to duplicate that. So they did not, at least for right now. They said, okay, we'll duplicate Twitter, but not the business model. If the business model is just a loyalty and a data play, because as we talked about last week, they're taking everyone's data. They're taking your social security number, information on your firstborn. Yeah. They're taking all that information. They're going to use that to create a better experience for advertisers on the other platforms. Yeah. And that's going to work out beautifully for them. And then the more they can keep you on any kind of a meta platform, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, or Threads, that's good for the entire organization, for them to sell whatever else they want to. And a lot of people have been talking about, and I agree with it, is the verification play. And you talked about it last week, where people are now thinking, well, I wasn't verified before, now I want to be verified.
Right. Now I'm on 3 platforms. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's that third platform that right? Is the tipping point.
You get it on one, you get it on all of them. It's fantastic.
That's right.
So,
yeah, it's ultimately, I think we'll both be wrong there. I think they will introduce advertising to it.
Of course they will. They don't have to.
They don't have to. And
wait as long as possible. That's where I talked about this in the newsletter, is that Twitter cannot compete with Threads, because Threads,
if they don't advertise,
like a nonprofit organization. It's like competing against a nonprofit. They don't have to monetize.
That's right.
They can just create an amazing experience and be done.
That's right. And honestly, it would hasten if there's, everybody sort of put this into the cage match territory and all that kind of stuff. This keeping it free and open and free of advertising and high engagement rates and all that kind of stuff would only hasten Twitter's death, right? It would only hasten the idea. Now, I don't particularly think that if you believed it all, that there was some interesting analysis done that said Threads may end up being sort of the more, if you look at it this binary, and to say there's a right and a left platform, Twitter may actually sort of start to become what Truth Social or what some of those other sort of more right-wing platforms were over time, and Threads may be what Twitter used to be, or whether you think it's centrist or leftist or whatever it is, right? But you may see it. I thought it was an interesting analysis to say we may start to see that both can survive, but both would be smaller as a result. But I go back and I go, well, already, but the business model of a Truth Social or something like that is also flawed, because the whole point of these kinds of things, and this says more about our culture than anything else, is that you need the tension, you need the friction, right? You need the friction in the community, because that's what builds engagement. Yeah. And so that, it will be interesting to see if the same kinds of content start to emerge on Threads as was on Twitter, as it starts to take more and more, because the analysis has also shown that traffic is down on Twitter, engagement is down on Twitter, so it is having an effect.
It's not.
Yeah. Right.
Linda Yaccarino says it's not.
But of course she says that. Of course she says.
You know what I would like? Here's what I believe that Elon should do regarding Twitter, because we talked about, like, okay, valued when he bought it at $44 billion. You could make a case it's worth way less than $5 billion right now. There's a lot of unnecessary pressure on Elon to make this thing profitable. Why? He's got so much with Tesla's recent price increase. He's got more than enough to cover. He can buy back at a discount right now. He should go to the other investors, give them 50 cents on the dollar for their investment, take the whole thing in, and take the pressure off, and stop screwing around with it just to try to make money off of doing silly things like he's been trying to do, and just have it run. It just needs to be Twitter. It doesn't have to be anything different. It just needs to be Twitter. I
True.
don't understand.
Yeah,
it's like,
true.
oh, we got to do this. We got to add this verification, and we got to, oh, you can only see these blue check marks, only see this many tweets, and you got this, and then TweetDeck's only for blue. All this stuff. It's just silly.
Yeah.
He's just screwing it up. You can't do that right now. Just say, hey, I'm going to take a breather, and we're just going to let the platform be the platform you know and loved.
Yeah. Or hasten some of the X apps that he's been talking about, right? The payment platform, or make it something different, right? So in other words, look at what Threads is doing and go, okay, there's zigging, so I'm going to zag, right? So I'm going to make Twitter, a different kind of platform, move more into being a competitor to Venmo or Square or something like that.
Maybe something like Vine.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. There
Twitter
it is.
needs to pivot back
to Vines.
To the one
to
that
Vines.
that they bankrupted.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever.
Hey, before we get to our last story here, which is a really fun one, maybe we should give our sponsor a shout out.
Oh my goodness. This is amazing. We want to do a big shout out to StreamYard. We're using StreamYard.
We are using StreamYard.
Absolutely right now. And we've been using StreamYard for the past couple months now.
Yes.
And if you've noticed, we're able to live stream onto both of our LinkedIn platforms, which we do on Friday mornings. So
that's right.
Catch us on Friday morning, every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern time on my platform, 11 a.m. Eastern time on Robert's LinkedIn page. We go directly to our YouTube page. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, go ahead and do that. This Old Marketing. We've got a couple subscribers that are really happy with that, but we'd love to get get your comments and all that. But what's wonderful is that, and I'm not, you and I had a really good methodology for recording our podcast. Very old school. We would record it locally.
That's right.
And then we'd splice it together. It took me about an hour of post-production to do this, and the quality was great, but it's a lot of time. Now, you and I can do video and audio seamlessly. As soon as we're done with this broadcast, it's done. Everything's done. That's because of StreamYard. I can't promote it enough. I think they're doing a great job, and we love to use the app. And it's really changed the way. And of course, as we're doing this program, we can bring in the news articles, and we can bring in a question, which we'll do in a little bit. And it's been pretty great all the way around.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and for longtime listeners of the show, you'll know that I had some challenges early on with, we had some technology challenges, but it was literally just figuring out the way that StreamYard works best. And so I was an early sort of skeptic about the platform, and went, it's not working the way I want it to work. And why is it only this way with there and that? And when we figured out what they were actually doing, when we actually made sure that our settings were correct, and that making sure that we are, getting into the platform and really doing what it wants you to do and the way you want it wants you to do it, it works brilliantly. It works perfectly. So it was a classic case of me being resistant to change my workflow versus,
me too.
So
absolutely. We didn't want to change. We've been doing the same thing for 350 episodes the same way. And we didn't want to change. We have changed. We are capable of change.
We are. Yes.
It wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be.
No, it only took us a few episodes to get it all sorted out.
Yeah. And our listeners know, but I think we're getting there. We feel pretty good about it. If you go to StreamYard.com/thetilt, StreamYard.com/thetilt, you will get a free trial, which is wonderful, and a lifetime discount. Ooh, which is even better.
A lifetime.
So go to the StreamYard.com/thetilt. It'll be in the show notes as well. But we're big
when you're
fans.
85 years old, you're still getting that discount.
By the way, did you ever think that Gary Vaynerchuk was going to be on This Old Marketing? There it is. There's his picture.
Oh my God,
that's amazing. Hi, you love him.
I like Gary. I look. Gary's a lovely guy. He's a great guy. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
I don't love all his thinking, but is a great guy.
He's helped a lot of people. I'll tell you
he's
what.
Helped
when I went to
VCon,
when I went to VCon, it was like being at a Scientology event and Tom Cruise is up there. Oh, that's kind of how.
All right. That's I'm going to guess he doesn't love that testimonial, but
he does not. He's going to be mad at me for saying that. Let me do a better one. He was like Jesus. No.
Oh no. Oh dear.
People were. Maybe let's like how about like Post Malone or Lady Gaga?
Post
or
Malone.
Taylor Swift. Maybe that was
No.
That's how people were going.
He is the Taylor Swift
be around.
Yeah.
He is the Swiftie. No, wait, that's not right either. Okay, we're just gonna stop right there.
Yeah, I think that's probably good. I did enjoy
VCon though. I think he does a great job. I would like to see more, but here's what's interesting.
Yeah.
If I had a piece of feedback for Gary, I would like to see more Gary at his conference. He involved a lot of people and he did it in most of the right ways, but I think that people wanted to see Gary up on stage a little bit more, like doing a little bit more hosting. That's what I would like to see. So,
okay.
Yeah. There.
All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right.
Sure.
Moving along. Moving along here. All right. We're
going to delete that whole section. Yeah. Nobody wants this.
Yeah. Moving along here to our last story here to cover very quickly here. This comes from What's New in Publishing. .com. Again, a really fun, good site that I have come to like very much. And the headline is, you cannot build a media company and not be profitable. Publishing insights from the Morning Brew. And this is a combination of a blog of best practices along with some video here with the entire session, which is with Jacob Donnelly, the publisher of the Morning Brew and founder of A Media Operator, which is another great
site. Yeah.
Another great site. And basically, it opens up with really saying that covering the best practices that Jacob talked about and the key insights from the session, one being the only way to succeed in media is through niches. Unless you're the New York Times, you're not going to succeed, says Jacob, if going forward, if you don't have a very clear, defined understanding of who your audience is. Niche media is picking a lane and knowing exactly who is the consumer of that content. The key to any of these products is that they have to know exactly or actually who wants it. We had Recurrent Ventures up there before. Every one of their publications, they're all niche, and they have a very specific who that wants that content. We've talked about that for a long time. And then, two, you cannot build a media company and not be profitable, and this is where the headline comes from. And he says, if we look at BuzzFeed, Vice, a lot of these large general interest publications, their dream was to get as big as humanly possible, right? Probably not a completely bad set of advice given what we've seen and what we talked about in the early part of the show. Like, you have to be huge and scale, right? So BuzzFeed says, they ended up raising hundreds of millions of dollars. They're about to go bankrupt, even though we thought they were worth $5.8 billion. They weren't. Same with Vice, has had its own problems. And basically, he says, if you're not immediately trying to figure out how to generate revenue for your business, if you're not immediately figuring out how to get sustainability, you're going to be on a hamster wheel of investing, of raising money. So I thought some just really good, solid advice for those that want to either think about starting or are in the midst of operating a media company.
Well, I think if for any content marketing venture as well, because
exactly,
I know whenever somebody launches anything, whether it's for a marketing purpose or whether it's a creator launching their own media brand, they're almost always too broad.
Yeah,
they're trying to cover too much to too many different personas. So you have to really narrow that down. I'm still focusing on one type of customer, one type of audience, and I'm not going to try to boil the ocean with my content. And that's like, I can't tell you, 90% of the time when I'm doing an analysis, is that, hey, this is what I'm trying to cover. What do you think? I'm like, too big. I think, and maybe that's because I benefit from starting in business to business publishing. And when I started at Pet Media, I got in there. Pet Media is not even a company. There was no brand called Pet Media. It was 50 individual media properties underneath Pet that all served one customer each. And that's how they were successful. So from
didn't you have wasn't there like a publication devoted to like firefighters or fire prevention people?
Well, yeah, I was for a short time I was publisher of Fire Protection Engineering.
There it is, Fire Protection Engineering. Now that is a niche audience.
It was the number one publication for fire protection engineers.
Right, there you go. Right.
Ta-da!
Yeah.
By the way, I should pull that out. I was on the cover of one of the issues because the actor didn't show up that was supposed to stand in, and they said, you look good enough. You be the you
be the fire protection engineer.
You pretend I was supposed to be an architect.
An architect,
and
I see.
Or whatever. So
I am Art Vandelay.
I didn't do a very good job of it, and I had a lot more hair at the time, so it's a really good picture of me.
Art Vandelay, Pulizzi.
The second point about profitability, you're going to see less and less of these bigger media launches, I think, because of what happened with Vice and what happened with BuzzFeed. There's a huge opportunity for product brands to launch these things because they don't have the pressure. We talk about it all the time. They don't have the pressure of needing to drive revenue directly from the thing. They can do it as a loyalty play. They can do it because they want to increase yield on their current products. They could do it as a lead gen play. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a profitable entity in and of itself.
Yeah.
And that's where we've always believed that it's just, I don't want to say it's an easier path for content marketers, but it is.
Yeah.
It is. Because you can measure it a bunch of different ways, and you don't just have to measure it like media companies do. What's my revenue? What's my cost? How much is my profit? Can I keep moving forward?
Yeah.
So
100%, you know, and I'll the only thing I'll button on that is to say that, and it's ironic that I literally my article that'll appear here next week, I think it is for CMI. I wrote about this, which is this again, coming back to this, the value of an audience, the value of a subscribed, engaged audience. And what I make the point of, which really is brilliantly supported with these two insights from Jacob, is that building your first audience as a, you know, whether you're doing this in content marketing or as a media company or whatever, we have to remember that building that first audience, that, you know, for that first platform that you focus on and that you put blood, sweat, and tears into is hard. It takes time. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, you've said it many times, you know, 9 months, you know, 18 months, you know, whatever the it is a long-term investment. But the second one comes much quicker. The Threads is a perfect example of that. But the second one comes much, and the example I've been using these days is to say, look at what Cleveland Clinic did, right? It took them 10 years to build the millions of, you know, subscribers and audiences that they had to their Health Essentials blog. But then they launched Health Library, and within like 2 or 3 years, they had millions of, you know, because they had that lead-in audience. They had that lead-in audience to sort of help support it. So it's that, and that's where profitability really starts to come in, because it becomes a flywheel, right? Reaching and engaging those subscribers becomes much easier once you have them. So things, you know, we talk about this all the time. You're going to launch a podcast. Podcast is a perfect thing to launch after you have a big audience, because it's much easier to launch if you've already got an existing audience who is already willing, ready, and able to come and subscribe to you audio-wise. So, yeah, it's great insights there.
Great point. Start with one first.
That's right.
Just do it.
All right, let's get into our rants and raves here.
Do you want to do the question? Or do you want
I would love to do the question. I'm a little concerned about time, but yeah, let's do this question.
Let's do this. Well, it's a great question. Why don't we save it for next week?
We're going to save it for next week.
Great. So Peter, we got your question.
We got your
Love
question.
Your questions.
Yes.
Next week.
It's perfect. We're going to save
already loaded up and ready to go.
It's yeah. And there you go.
we just talked too.
That's right.
Too long this episode. Okay.
That's exactly right. All right. So before we get to our rants and raves here, just very quickly here, get on over to our site, won't you? thisoldmarketing.com. It's got all the stuff. You can subscribe to the Experience Advisors newsletter, which is my little newsletter that is just got all sorts of wonderful goodness in there for all of you who are building experiences for audiences. And then, of course, there's Joe's The Tilt newsletter, which is also just fabulously filled with wonderful chunks of goodness about you being a content entrepreneur and all of the things around that. And of course, you can listen and or see all of the other 383 hours of our nonsense. And yeah, it's a really nice little resource there for you. So get on over there and do that. And of course, pass on subscriptions. Give us a review. Pass on subscriptions. We really want to build this audience, and we need you to help us do that. So,
and one of our wonderful friends and subscribers of the show, Stephen Davis, has been telling us to push our YouTube channel.
Yes, push it.
So I'm going to do it right now. Go to this episode in YouTube and say hi. We will respond to you.
Yeah,
with some.
Yeah, usually YouTube comments are not a pretty place to visit, but hopefully ours will stay.
But there's no bots on it. I mean,
I know.
If we're just telling our current subscribers to go there, I think
maybe it'll stay. Maybe it'll stay okay.
Place.
Yeah, maybe it'll stay. It's a safe place. It's a safe place.
It's a safe brand environment.
We've got a safe word. Our safe word is chucklehead. There you go. The safe word is chucklehead when you go there. Okay.
Nobody wants this. Okay.
Yeah. You want to go first, or shall I go first? You should go first because yours is a little like, it's not a downer per se, but it's
not a yes. It's let me find and see if I have an article here. Here's an article. I'll just put this up for a second. So, yeah, this is a PSA on this article. Basically, the jury decides 2014 document found in Aretha Franklin's couch is a valid will. I'm not going to go through the details of why this, but basically, there was no will structure for Aretha Franklin's entire estate worth millions and tens of millions of dollars. They found one will somewhere in documents, and then apparently there's another one that was found in a couch. And these wills are fighting against each other. And what I want to say is, I've talked to a lot of people that don't have wills. Get a will. This is totally ripping apart Aretha Franklin's family, because one says one thing and is the executor to one of the kids, and the other one the other kid is an executor, and there's all these discrepancies in there, and so nobody knows anything. So what you want to do, like what would have been great, is if Aretha, before she unfortunately passed away, said that this will supersedes any other wills that you may find in couches or other furniture devices or whatever, right? That would have been better to do that.
Yeah.
So first of all, get a will, and then make sure you put in that will that this will, dated whatever, notarized, whatever you're going to do it, is the will that supersedes everything else. So you don't have this thing happening. And my heart goes out for this family that are needlessly fighting over this thing, because Aretha's estate didn't do what everyone needs to do. So whether you have $10 or $10 billion, you should have some kind of will that tells the people that love you in your life what they need to do. And this one obviously didn't do the job. So this has nothing marketing related. It's just, man, it's not that hard to do, folks.
Yeah.
Get it done. Get it done, please.
Yeah, it's that, and your living trust and all those kinds of things are also it's just good just to get it all taken care of.
It's an estate. Yeah, my wife
estate
and I,
planning.
We went to an estate planning attorney about in 2001.
Yeah,
so over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
and it gets you to ask hard questions.
Yeah.
The things that you don't want, but you have to add, like, what if something happened to either of you? Who gets the kids?
Right.
Where do these things go? What's this money? What's this asset? And you
right.
don't think about a lot of these questions, and you have to. It's not about you, folks.
Right.
It's about the people you love that have to deal with this. So, and we have some family members that like to buy things. And whenever there's a certain person that likes to go out there and buy something and say, "Hey, can I go ahead and buy this?" Older family member wants to go out and buy that, and I'm like, "Look, you can buy this right now, but just know that I'm the one that's going to have to deal with this when you die." So,
there's no guilt trip there at all.
Do you need this thing to make you feel better about your life in some way, or do you want to make my life a living hell? If you want to make my life a living hell, buy this. Yeah,
I love that. That's a very funny conversation, right? Just sure, go buy it. I don't want it, but sure, go buy it.
It's like, you are almost 80 years old. What do you need that for? What is this going to do for?
It's like that. Yeah, it's like that Twisted Sister video. What are you gonna do with your life?
It's like, I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take it and pick it up, put it in the car, and take it to Goodwill. That's exactly where that's going.
That's very funny.
What do you have?
I'm kind of giggling now about that whole thing. All right, that wasn't nearly the downer that I thought it was going to be.
No, it's uplifting. It's good.
I just want to very quickly rave on the new Star Trek series. Well, it's not new anymore. It's season 2 of the series. They're 3 episodes in, and it's just living up to everything that it promised to be. Right? They promised to get into Adventure of the Week, like the old original series was, and it is exactly that. They're getting into Adventures of the Week, so there's no long, weird relationship character arcs. There's a couple of things that are sort of continuing from episode to episode that were very much part of the character arcs of the original series, and of course Next Generation. But it's truly each week is a new planet, a new adventure, a new exploration, getting back to some of the just adventure stuff instead of sort of the deep sort of, personal issues or those kinds of things. So it's just really, really good. And I just wanted to shout out, my favorite part of it is, and I actually read an article from the showrunner who talked about this, is so with a show like that, inevitably there is going to be things that are fan service, right? Because it is a prequel in many ways, right? I'm not giving anything away here, is that it is set 10 years before the events of the original series. And so you meet many of the people that are on the original series that will eventually become Kirk and Spock and all of the different characters. But so inevitably they're going to some of the same places that the original series. They're meeting some of the same people. They're hearing about some of the same things that are all canon at this point for the series. But they do it in such a wonderful way. And and the episode 3 was just a perfect example of this, where if you knew, you knew. In other words, if you knew what was actually going on in the background with the planet that they visited and the villain that they actually dealt with and what happened with the original series and how you get introduced to Captain Pike in the original series, is just, if you didn't, and my wife has zero idea of this, and my wife enjoyed the episode absolutely just as much as I did. But for fan service, there's sort of a wink and a nod in there, and it's just they're not ham-handed with it. It's just absolutely brilliant. So I just have to rave about. It's just such a great way to present this content, and in a way that I think meets the needs of both the rabid fans as well as the sort of more casual fans. So
was
just
somebody
huge
wearing
rave.
Was somebody wearing a tribble or something like that? Is that
No
tribbles yet.
No tribbles yet. No, not that I've seen anyway.
That's one that's gone through all. I mean, always comes back. You're going to see it. You're going to have to see it.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine was really about the tribbles. They brought a couple of episodes back with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was never hooked on Star Trek. Well, I wasn't around when it was on. I mean, you were. I mean, you watched that live on television.
But, okay, all right.
But I got stuck. I got stuck on Next Generation, as you know. That's our whole floor at Andero Hall at Bowling Green State University. We got together. I think it was Sunday nights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
yeah,
we all got together and watched Next Generation, and that's how I got involved. And then I went through, watched everything else. So,
yeah,
there you go.
Good stuff. Good. All right. So what do you got this week? Where are you going? You're traveling, I think.
We've got a little bit of a road trip going. I'm seeing my old friend, college roommate from Bowling Green in North Carolina. So we're going to go visit him and his family. We're going to see the Chelsea Wrexham match.
Nice.
In Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Wrexham being Ryan Reynolds and Robin
of course,
McElhenney's, the team. So I'm looking forward to that, and be traveling around that area. And so the next This Old Marketing will be from the road.
Okay.
For me.
All right.
So I have no idea where I'm going to be.
Well, that'll be fun.
It could be crazy.
It could be. It'll be really interesting. The video part of that will be especially interesting.
So it's going to be a different setup. I'm going to use my laptop. So fingers crossed that'll work. But
well,
what do you got going on?
It's work. I'm working on these classes that I'm going to try and debut in the fall here.
Yay.
That's it's weird working on stuff that's not going to see the light of day. That's really how I've spent a lot of this year, is like working on a lot of things, the book, classes, stuff. So it's like I'm busy, but it's hard to translate that busyness into output, because it's stuff that won't actually get released until end of the year, early next year. So
I feel you. I think a lot of creators feel that same thing. It's like you're working on something that won't see the light of day for a while, but it's like working on a book too.
It's weird.
It's like, what did you do today? I wrote for 2 hours. Nobody's going to see that for 6 months.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just a little weird. It's a little weird, but all good. All don't think there. All right, well, that's it for us. As we will see, as we saw, Joe will be here next week from the road somewhere. I will, of course, be right here in my little chair. And until we see you next week, just remember, in the meantime, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week. on This Old Marketing.